There is only one thing that will ruin your academic career faster than running naked through your department, punching people in the face, and that is plagiarism. Plagiarism is something that will ruin your academic credibility and your PhD quicker than you can say, I recently wrote an article on academiainsider.com. I'll put a link in the description. It was all about whether or not PhDs can be revoked, and they can. And the biggest reason, unsurprisingly, is that someone just copied someone else's work and claimed it as their own. If you are doing a PhD, make sure you understand the plagiarism rules. Essentially, if it is someone else's idea, someone else's word, someone else's work, anything to do with something else, that you can cite, put a citation, and you can get around any of the plagiarism problems. The second biggest no-no for your PhD is making sure that you don't overinflate what you've done to your PhD supervisor, that you're honest and you just don't make stuff up. Now, I understand the pressure as a PhD student. You want to impress your PhD supervisor, you want to impress your peers, but even the smallest little lie or overinflation of what you've done can really come back to bite you in the bum. Just being completely honest at all times with your data, where it's up to, means that you'll get the help you need as well throughout your PhD to ensure that you kind of like keep up the progress. Do not be tempted to overstate what you've done. Just be honest with yourself, be honest with your supervisor, be honest with the data that you report to your supervisor in meetings and to the field, and you'll be in a much better standing when you come to write up, and it will just help everything move so much smoother. Even if you have to say sometimes that things aren't going to plan, that's perfectly okay. Another no-no is perfection. I have said it a lot on this channel, and it is worth stating again. Never aim for perfection during your PhD. You'll never get there, and also you'll never ever finish. So it's important that you just do work. You complete work to a good standard. Good is good enough. Do not let perfection kill your progress. Importantly, keep sort of like trudging forward at all times. And also, if you have a deadline, submit that thing, whatever you've got at that time, at the deadline. It is perfection that kills PhD studies. So just get it done, get it submitted, you thank yourself, and move on to that next challenge. Another big no-no is stop relying on your memory to store information. Use a lab book, use a notebook, take notes in a single place. My lab notebook was so important in keeping me on track, keeping my ideas in a single place. We often, as PhD students, think, oh, I'll just remember that, and you won't. There are so many things that happen during a PhD throughout the day, throughout a week, that you will not remember that particular thing. Write it down. If you are learning a new thing, write down the steps that you need to do to perform that task. Write down all of the experimental details. Write down all of your thoughts. Write down everything. Even if you ignore it at a later date, it doesn't matter. You need to store that information somewhere. I always carried my lab notebook and a pen wherever I was going through the department. Even if I was heading down to the lunchroom, I would take it, because quite often I'd bump into people, I would see them, they'd say something, I'd go, oh yeah, and then I'd write it down quickly. That's all you need. Keep all of your ideas, your notes in a single place, a physical kind of notepad or book or something. In chemistry we have actual lab books, but whatever you have, please remember to write it down. Another no-no is not celebrating the little wins. It seems a little bit trivial at the time to celebrate that little experiment that went well, that little bit of light that bubbles up throughout the day. You need to celebrate the little things, because they will happen and they will help sort of like build your momentum and enthusiasm for that next win. I did it when I got my first ever working solar cell using my solar ink. I was so happy. I rushed home, I got a bottle of wine, and we just drank it that evening. It was nothing huge, but it was just celebrating the little wins. And a PhD can be very, very sort of damaging to your mental health if you just allow all the failures to build up, because biologically speaking, you still feel those failures. But importantly, if you celebrate the wins, you're at least trying to kind of like offset that biological feeling of stress, anxiety. And so just by reminding yourself that you are winning little by little every single week, month, day, whatever it is, that will help you get through your PhD. So don't forget to celebrate the little wins. Another PhD no-no is to forget to cultivate relationships outside of your PhD. Remember that these are relationships that will help you de-stress, decompress, all of those kind of moments where you need to sort of just think about something other than your PhD. These relationships will be there to help you. So if you've got a partner, a significant other, make sure you sort of like spend some time cultivating that relationship. If you've got good friends, if you've got hobbies, whatever you have outside of academia, do not forget it, because it is these moments that are going to help you get through the tough moments. Another no-no is comparing yourself relentlessly. Now, in academia, we are always comparing ourselves because we have metrics, we have numbers against our careers, whether it's the amount of money we've brought in, our H-index, everything seems to be there to compare ourselves to others. But during your PhD, you should be focused on your work. You should only be comparing yourself to where you were last month, last week, last year even, not with the person in your lab who has got that extra paper, or those people that have brought in money, or the person in your lab or your research group that is so much further ahead than you. They have got their own struggles going on, and a PhD can actually sort of make you feel like you need to be standardized with everyone. But that's not how a PhD works. Not everyone is going through at the same rate. Some people will have a really good start and then decay back. Some people will struggle for years and then sort of take off at the end. It is about ongoing commitment to solving that research problem and answering that research question that will ultimately pay off in the long run. So don't compare yourself, because really there's nothing in it. Even if you're comparing yourself to people under you and you're like, oh, I'm doing better than them, they will overtake you eventually if they carry on working and you just relax. So comparison, whatever form it takes, will never help you through your PhD unless it is the comparison to yourself and your own progress, where you were last week, for example. So just compare yourself to yourself, forget everyone else, keep trudging forward, and don't let the outside factors sort of like influence how you feel about your own progress. Academic departments are full of politics, toxic behavior, backstabbing, the lot. I've got my other video about academic politics. Go check it out wherever that link goes. Unfortunately, it can be very easy to get swept up in this toxicity and these politics. Do not. As a PhD student, it is best to stay as neutral as possible. The reason being that you will probably have to go to another academic and ask for advice, ask for their skills, ask for access to their equipment or their expertise or their students, whatever it is. You have to remain as neutral as possible. So even if you have a long-running, conflict with another group, it is important that you do not get swept up in the academic politics. Another no-no is waiting to ask for help. Problems need solving quickly during your PhD, especially those really annoying little ones that you feel like you can handle on your own. Don't. If you find you can't handle something on your own, as soon as you realize you need help, ask for help. Keep that momentum up. I remember being stuck on problems for weeks because I was just either stubborn or scared to ask for help, considering it like, oh, it's a weakness on my part. It's not. Overcoming those little problems can help you keep the momentum moving forward, keep you on progress and on track to completing your PhD on time. And even the smallest little thing can keep you held back for far too long. So do not forget to ask for help if you need it. This is one of my favorites, and it's something that I have to talk about a lot on this channel because it is also very important, and that's not having a plan for after your PhD. Too many PhD students end up doing a PhD because it is the path of least resistance. They don't really know what a PhD is like, but it's better than getting one of those rubbish job things. But you will finish your PhD at some point, and then what? What are you going to do with your life? It is important to at least have a plan. Having a plan is empowering. I went into industry as an explosives chemist and then I came back to academia. I really recommend that anyone entering a PhD has an idea of what they would do other than be an academic. It is tough to get an academic position, and therefore, what would you do if you did not get an academic position? Going into a PhD, knowing that means you can look for the skills to build, you can look for opportunities to network, even while you're doing your PhD. So when you come out the other end, you aren't doing what the majority of PhD students do, which is just go, oh crap. What do I do? Where do I go from here? And then it feels like a waste. That's when people start regretting their PhD. Make sure your PhD works for you by ensuring that you know at least what you want to do for a year afterwards. Outside of your PhD, you can change your mind. I changed my mind so many times and, flip-flop between different careers, outside of academia, inside of academia, entrepreneurship, the lot. It's important that you at least have an idea because then you will feel empowered and it's not a kind of panic after you've submitted your PhD. Then you're getting super depressed because you're like, oh, I worked hard for all this, all these credentials and this PhD for nothing. Don't be that person. So there we have it. There are what I think are the biggest no-nos for PhD students. Let me know in the comments what you would add. And also remember to go sign up for my newsletter at andrewstapleton.com.au/newsletter. The link is in the description. When you sign up, you'll get 5 emails over about 2 weeks. Everything from the tools I use, the podcasts I've been on, and more. It's exclusive content only available for free. And also, go check out academiainsider.com. That's my project where I've got my ebooks, the Ultimate Academic Writing Toolkit, as well as the PhD Survival Guide, and I also have a number of blog articles now that are helping you make sure you understand what a PhD is and how it can work for you. All right then, I'll see you in the next video.